And without any further ado, I will go into introductions. So first, I will hand it over to Liz, and I will allow her to introduce herself. I think you are on mute.
There we go. Hi, guys. I'm Liz. I work for Autodesk, which is a leading design software company. We are global and in 44 countries. I am the Employee Impact Program Lead, and I oversee our match and volunteer program, pro bono consulting, and finding out that crisis response is a larger space, becoming a larger space for us. But we are a very impact-driven company, and this is a really exciting opportunity to share how we leverage our impact.
Excellent. On to you, Dustin.
Great. Dustin Cooper here. Excited to see y'all today. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. I am calling out of Vallejo, California, nearby our Walnut Creek headquarters. I work for CSA Insurance Group in my third year, I think officially a couple of days ago. And I oversee our corporate giving, employee giving programs, volunteerism, pro bono work, very similar to Liz, and also spearheading our Total Social Impact Council work.
And that brings us to me. So my name is Tim Anson. I work with Goodera. Long story short, my role is engagement solutions, but I get to meet and work with people like Liz and Dustin, hear what it is that they're trying to do for months of service, year-long programs, etc., and try to take those fabulous ideas and fit them into what it is that Goodera can do, what we can provide, or what we aim to provide in the future. So we all take on slightly different aspects of the month of service world, but without any further ado, we will jump right in. So the first is we want to basically address some of the questions on why, what is a month of service, when do you do it, where does it take place, how do you actually make that happen? So put a little bit of some boundaries onto what it is we're going to be talking about. So a month of service, what it is a flagship volunteering campaign. It engages a large portion, or in many opportunities, it's a goal to engage the entire workforce within an organization. Now, we are referring to it and will refer to it throughout this entire presentation as a month of service. Do not feel restricted by a month on a calendar. We work with organizations that will start it halfway through 1 month and go for another. Some will do it for 60 days. Some only do it for a week. A lot of these ideas, skill sets are going to be beneficial for whatever the duration of time is. But the idea behind it is that you have a flagship moment or moments within the year, typically 1 or 2, where you're gathering a lot of your workforce together to take on volunteering, but also showing that it's something really important to the C-suites within your organization's mission and vision statement, really to back everything that you're saying throughout the rest of the year up. Why do you do it? Well, you do it for a dozen different reasons. Totally depends on your organization. It's an excellent way to help inspire your workforce through the work that you do. A lot of times, month of service are also going to reflect giving back to communities or to individuals that your organization works with or benefits from. And so making sure that, if there again is a mission or vision statement that the organization is trying to lead by, incorporating that into your month of service is a great way to get people involved in something that's not a traditional work activity, but also inspiring them. Now, how you do it, we are suggesting plan at least 3 months in advance, but that also is completely up to you. If you're trying to do something that might be 60 or 90 days, then you want to have a longer planning period. If you're trying to do just a week, then sometimes you can get that done with only having about a month or 2 in advance, starting that planning process. The point is, it's not something that you can think of today and get started on next week. You really want to make sure that you have some track to build up momentum, and then align the cause areas and the nonprofits with what it is that you want to do, either what the organization wants to do, the C-suite within your organization wants to do, or asking your own employees, your own associates, what is it that drives passion with them? And then find activities that are going to reflect that. Anybody is going to be much more interested in something that they feel interested or partially committed to, as opposed to just a random volunteer activity that they might feel not as much of a connection. When to do it? So you can do one coming up on the end of the year. So the giving season between late October, November, December is a great time for people to do that. It's already typically a time when people are looking at giving back and helping those around them. But other than that, literally any time of year is a good time of year if it works for your organization. We see a lot of people will do it around, the anniversary of when their organization was started, or if there's a downtime of year where there's a little bit less going on, that's another great way to fit in a volunteering month of service. And so that you don't have people who are kind of pulled in multiple directions during this time where you want to focus on volunteering. Where everywhere. So globally, you can do this where your team, no matter where they're located, we can do in-person programs, both at your office, off-site, people taking part in virtual programs, hybrid, where you have some people commuting from or joining in from home, others from the office, as well as asynchronous programs as well. So it really doesn't matter what your work style is, where your employees are located, if they're in office, out of office, in a kitchen, it doesn't really matter. There are a variety of different programs that you can get them engaged so that they still feel like they're part of the global team. And without any further ado, I'm going to transition into Dustin talking a little bit about the programs that they were able to run in 2022.
Great. Thank you, Tim. So as I mentioned, with CSAA, we have 3,600 folks officially now. So we've been hiring, which allows us to have hopefully more folks get involved and volunteer. We are in 6 main locations, but sell insurance, home and auto insurance in 23 different states. Our folks are becoming much more dispersed. So a lot of our work in the virtual space and with our campaign last year was how to get those folks that are in areas that we don't have a large concentration of employees or existing nonprofit relationships. So we worked with Goodera on sourcing, I believe, 50 original events in 2022. You'll see here, we ended with 19. And so I'll share a lot more about those learnings, but just to be transparent, we probably bit off a little more than we could chew and really didn't go through all of the maybe admin or some of that more boring stuff prior to confirming those dates. And so that's something that we've learned and we'll be implementing for our upcoming campaign. That being said, those that did participate, we had a great turnout. Folks, it was during our busy season, which can make it tough. Lots of things happening in November and December in the insurance world. But folks made their, set aside their time to attend, had events that were as impactful as we could in the virtual world. So we've been working with Goodera closely to see how we can design those digital assets to ensure that those beneficiaries are receiving those on the other end and really making sure they're meaningful. So we've been able, I think one was birthday cards for seniors that was local to the San Francisco Bay Area, and it had the actual birthday. So we knew that, those folks are going to have those birthday cards the day of, and they know that it's really meant for them. So that was one event that was really, resonated with our folks. In addition, we had a 3-for-1 matching gifts program. This was very successful. It was for our nonprofit partners only. So as Tim mentioned, it's a great time to really spread awareness and educate your employees about your giving strategy. So we've had a bit of a shift in our approach and had some new nonprofit partners. And so we were able to introduce them and really bring meaningful contributions from our employees and then combine those with our employee giving programs. In addition to those virtual events, we had quite a few in-person events at food banks, those providing services to the unhoused, as well as a pro bono declaration clinic. So we tried to offer as many kind of various opportunities as we could, being as flexible as we could during that time. Thank you. So as I mentioned, we now have 20 plus planned, but what we did is we worked closely with our workforce management and scheduling team. We have a lot of frontline employees that their time is very valuable and really up to the second is how they're measured in the responses. So we made sure to request dates well in advance that they provided to us. We're working closely with them, ensuring that those requests can be fulfilled as high of a rate as possible. We're going to be continuing our 3-for-1 match to our nonprofit partners. I think we saw a $78,000 increase. It was more than a 200% increase. And these are going to be for nonprofits that we've already vetted, have existing relationships with, building awareness with our nonprofit partners, and then also often connecting to board service when folks are so inspired. And now the goal we're really trying to focus on is how can we have an async activity, so anything that folks can jump on at any time that's really going to be aligned with our business needs. So how could we help folks in perhaps low income, low insured communities provide access resources to really ensure that they are better prepared for disasters and hopefully in the long run really being able to be more likely to be insured and just uplifting those communities as a whole.
Excellent, thank you. And now we'll transition to Liz to talk a little bit more about the month of service that they were able to do in May.
Wow, that was great, Dustin. Such a cool program. So Autodesk is a large company, global company, and we have around 14,000 employees across 44 countries. So we do a global month of giving and a global month of impact, and both of those are very sustainably or impact oriented. And we work really hard to find activities that follow that strategy, that have some sort of sustainable angle on them and have a meaningful impact. So we are really excited to partner with Goodera this year because they had such great activities and different types of activities. Autodesk has so many people, and it's really difficult to find one activity that is meaningful to everyone. So we were really blessed to work with Goodera and have an option of activities that we had different offices could choose what aligned best with their employee goals. We have a Impact Champion Ambassadors Network that we lean very heavily on to facilitate these big campaigns. Could not do it without them. And they were really key in not only choosing the activity that was really important to their employee base, but also doing a lot of the comms promotion and signups and recruiting. And then on the day of, even supporting those things. We can go to the next one. So we had a true month of service this May. And through that, we had, I want to say, 48 events completed, both in person and virtually. We did everything from creating pollinator hotels to building solar lights and creating native species seed balls to a really big favorite with our employees was taking out your digital trash. It was really impressive to see how many people showed up between the two. We had just over 51% of the volunteers from our previous year, and everybody was really excited about the activities. It was almost a little difficult to have people just pick one, but they picked many. So yeah, it was really great to see. And one of our big strategies is creating equity around our global countries. So hitting all 3 regions. And Goodera really helped us with identifying which offices would have the biggest impact, which ones would fit with the best activity. And the thing that we really, really loved about it was the impact was localized. So people that were building solar lights in Korea, in Seoul, were giving them to North Korea defector camps in South Korea. And they were able to just really have localized impact, which is really, really important to Autodeskers. I think, as I said, we're very impact driven. So we really loved that Goodera had their activities already mapped to SDGs. It made it really easy to find the activity that was meaningful to us. These are the ones that we look for the most. And they had activities that were already aligned with that, which was really big also in selling it up for approval and knowing that these activities already are rooted in our SDG priorities.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that, especially, I mean, the complications of no matter what, you're one person, and even if you're working with a global team, unless you're willing to take on a 24-hour work clock, which obviously no one is advocating for, it's difficult to know what's going on in all locations at the same time. And so being able to pull them together and not only feel like they're giving back to something local is really important, but also, like you said, champions, again, whether you're just a couple hundred people or whether you're several thousand people, having someone to kind of take on the mantle of an individual program for a region, for an office, for a country, whatever it might be, really makes a lot of this process become a lot more fluid. And also you have someone that's accountable that you can reach out to help finalize things, not just in planning to make sure it makes sense, but also at the end of the individual program when you're actually executing. So jumping into what does this actually mean? What is the significance of this in a modern day workplace? So this is going to help you a lot with some of the macroeconomic challenges that are going on. The impact of employee engagement budgets are being affected, but the way in which you approach a month of service can be incredibly varied. You can do a lot of, more logistically intensive work doing physical programs that are on site, but also you can do a lot of virtual programs. And especially for a team that might be in more remote areas, there's a lot of flexibility in how you build out that program. So whether your goal is, we want to bring everybody back to the office, so we're going to have events there, or hey, we don't really care if people are in the office, we just want them to get them involved. There's a couple of different routes that you can take to serving all of those individuals to improve culture, but also taking on impact and engagement while being conscious of the budget that you have overall. On top of that, like I said, a month of service is important for company culture, just like any type of retreat or work activity where you're not specifically talking about work, just going back for a dinner or like conference or something like that. It's a great way to bring people together from different teams, different departments that are going to have like interests. They might share 45 minutes building a solar lamp together, but they also will just have that relationship with someone else within your organization that can be great for innovation, building on, and just making so that overall your culture stays as strong as possible as you're going forward. So now jumping into kind of the first of the three major steps. So this is planning out your month of service campaign. Again, we're going to then talk about execution as well as follow-up. There are 6 kind of different subsections here within planning out your campaign. And the first is, what is your measuring stick? So what are you going to measure yourself against at the end? Sometimes it's very simple. Sometimes it can be more complicated, but it can be anything from, again, the impact that you're looking to have, the amount of volunteers, maybe it's the amount of events that you want to do, or maybe it's your first time doing a month of service. You don't have a really well-defined goal. You just want to get out there and do one immediately. And from there, measure yourself and be able to have an improvement on the next one. But defining roughly what your goals are going to be will impact everything else that goes into this chain, because if you don't know what success looks like, it's going to be difficult to design a plan that will deliver you that success. So identifying what you want first really is going to be the best way to align everything else. Next, align your impact goals with corporate giving goals. So again, what are the goals that you want to have as far as impact? Do you want to, as Dustin was saying, if your organization is already working with insurance, then helping with disaster and emergency relief makes a lot of sense. It's going to really draw on people that are already working within this field, within this organization, that it's something that they want to continue to be connected with. So making sure that if those opportunities exist, either with a more altruistic mission, vision statement type goal, or just with what the corporate's giving goals are, align it where you can. It will make more sense for employees, and therefore employees will be more likely to volunteer. Next is looking at the scope, the scale, and the requirements. So looking at, do you want to hit every office your first year, or maybe you just want to start in one country or one region? Do you really want to get to 30, 50, 80% of your employees? Or are you just trying to see how many people are going to join if it's a little bit more natural, and people are coming in and just joining when they want to? Find out what you're looking to do so that therefore you can know how you're going to implement it and what programs are going to be there. Deciding modes of engagement, again, this is going to be tied to some of the past goals, but also your team. If your team is global, it's much more likely you're going to do virtual events, even if they're all working out of an office, because virtual events are a way for you to tie your team that's based out of Paris with your team that's based out of London. You can do a virtual event. Everybody's doing it from their own individual offices, but they're doing it together, pulling in the same direction. Similar to what Liz was talking about with the removing of digital trash, that has been a huge virtual program for Goodera with organizations that are global and want to feel like they're doing something together. Reducing CO2 emissions is something that makes sense all around the world. And so it doesn't really matter where your team is, even if you're doing it at different times during the day. At the end of the day, you can have a very simple message of, hey, as a team, we came together and got rid of X tons of carbon emissions because of all the trash we deleted. So figuring out what your mode of engagement is actually going to be will really depend on some of your other decisions, but it's important to have a good variety there. Again, if you have giving themes, similar to what Dustin was talking about with, the 3-for-1 and be able to give back to the organizations you're volunteering for, incredibly important. Again, it aligns with what you're already trying to do as an organization. Therefore, it makes more sense for the individual employees to jump in and get involved, and you'll have more people participating. And then last is designing your timelines. And that is important that it is last because you need to know everything else that will go into it so that you can properly predict how long is this going to take if everything goes smoothly. Let's build in some time for a couple of missteps, a couple of miscommunications, etc. But making sure that you have the time to do it, because since this is something that takes a lot of of effort, a lot of force, essentially, just to make sure that you get a lot of people involved, you want to make sure that you don't cut yourself short and only give yourself half the amount of time that's needed so that you're not rushing at the end. You really want to make sure that if you're putting the time and effort into making it good, that you have the time to make sure that you can deliver there. All right, and so let's jump into a little bit more from Dustin about their ability to plan, and just any other tidbits or details that you have from your experience.
Great, thanks, Tim. Just do want to preface that our goal really is to build on the momentum throughout the year. So obviously we want to have a month of service and have committed to that, but the goal really is to connect it to whatever your previous engagements were. So one thing we've been able to do, which we started planning, I believe in July, so we think about 4 months in advance planning, was really to identify those nonprofit partners that are in the Goodera network that we already work with. And then if there's a similar affiliate, such as Ronald McDonald House, we have a partnership with them in New Jersey as opposed to a certain another location. We can make sure that those local folks will be on the beneficiary. And like Liz said, it's very important for our folks to feel connected. And it may even be for clients that they've worked with and volunteered for in the past. But it'll be a 6-week initiative from a volunteer perspective. And then we have a 1-month 3-for-1 giving campaign. So that'll go throughout the month of November, again, with the goal of increasing giving to those nonprofit partners. One thing we've learned is really to communicate with our internal comms partners as early as possible. So we ensure that we review the company calendar well in advance, and not just the company calendar, but the company comms calendar. I'm sure a lot of you have limitations on how often and how broad you can share those things. So we've worked very closely with them. We also have our community impact champions, similar to Autodesk, that have been trained in really sourcing and facilitating meaningful events. So we'll often have them be a part of that, of a virtual event, to take my place. So I don't have to remind folks all the admin stuff of logging and tracking hours, but to also ensure that there's engagement and follow-up after the event. Our goal is to have interactive events. We understand that can be difficult, especially in the virtual world. One thing we're very cognizant of is centering the needs of our nonprofit partners. So I just want to preface for some folks to understand the power dynamic. Once folks like us ask for a nonprofit to put on an event for us, it often costs them a large amount of resources, time, and they may be strapped in that capacity. So we also use those as opportunities to educate our employees on those types of power dynamics and encourage them to donate the rewards to the nonprofit that they volunteered with, knowing that the resources were provided for them, but they are able to donate to whoever they like. But we use this as well as an educational opportunity for that aspect. Let's see here. And again, mention the workforce management component. We couldn't do it without them. I know a lot of folks on the call probably have, hourly workers. We provide 40 hours of what we call enrichment time a year, and that falls under volunteerism is included in that, along with culture, inclusion and belonging, wellness events, etc. So there's lots of things that we offer. So we end up, needing to have those things well in advance, which ends up being beneficial in the long run, because then we have less drop off. One thing we're also trying to improve this year is our sign up versus actual attendance rate. So we're going to be tracking that more often. So making sure we remind folks of those events that are coming up and that we are able to fulfill the the requirements that we've committed to our nonprofit partners. So something else we're focusing on. I'm sure I'm missing a few other things, but hopefully I can cover those in some future questions.
All right, moving forward. And Liz, on to you, talking a little bit more about preparation, what went well, and what maybe was unexpected.
Yeah. I have to say, we partnered with Goodera. I reached out to Tim sort of last minute for when I needed to present my idea for Global Month of Impact to my boss for budget sign off and creative sign off. And you responded very quickly right off the gate. We had such a brilliant pitch call, and it was key to be able to have a partner that is so organized. I'm a team of one, technically 1.5 because my boss is there to help, but basically 1. And then we have impact champions, which are great, but our impact champions are also volunteers. So it's on top of their normal job to support. And you want to make everything so incredibly easy for them. So having a partner with like Goodera that is super organized, super on top of everything is like detailed and listed, and they were just like a step ahead of where I was almost at all times. And I really, really appreciate that. And then to make it work with our impact champions was really involving them early. So that way they could voice preferences or let us know if there's any conflicts, really aligning on like the date that would be best for the events in their office and for their cities. And then the other big success part was having toolkits available. We're a global company, and we're right now we're even like working hard on a global listening tour and to understand how each office functions differently through work culture, personal culture, and like geography culture, all of their spaces. And understanding that like every team needs just a little bit different attention, a little bit different information. So having toolkits that really like supply everything in there was huge. It had all of the content, all the assets, all the dates, all the contact information, what they needed to know, addresses or like emails attached to it. It was really key. Slack posts and recruiting posts and like when to be sending those out was key. We used the Benevity platform, and it was awesome that Goodera can integrate with Benevity. They provided us with like the volunteer opportunity already built out. We just had to like upload it in there. And then when employees would sign up, Goodera would take over and handle like all of the emails and reminders from that point on. It was really great. I would say to like really be aware of how you need to measure. Tim was talking about identifying your impact goals, but how you're going to measure those goals is really key. So we had a lot of events that were virtual, and the way that we track our participation is through our Benevity portal. So we need employees to log their volunteer hours in order to report on it. And Goodera was great at sending us recaps of like who would log on to a volunteer Zoom call so we could track against who was logging their time or sign them up for it themselves. Our biggest metric is like unique participation. I think most companies probably have unique participation as their number one. So it was really important that we capture who was signing up and who actually showed up. So I think that was a really, really big, important part. And then from having that data, we were able to understand who was showing up between each of our geographies, between each geo, each country, each org, and even seeing the sign up part, we were able to then leverage that with certain leaders in different orgs, different countries, and report on that to create new recruitment or that other push of like, let's do this all together. Let's do this as a team. I think the impact champions was a really big part in minimizing the odd outcomes. Between Goodera being super, super prepared and the impact champions being prepared with like their toolkits, any hiccups that came along the way, I really didn't have to, it wasn't as big of a fire. It was just like a little bit of a spark, because immediately if something happened in Germany, Goodera was on it with them. If something was happening, like a shipment got lost in Toronto, Goodera was sending tracking information. So finding a really good partner to execute these global months is really key.
Excellent. Well, also thank you. It was a pleasure designing out your month of service. So thank you for that. Also, I see that we have a hand raised. We will have a Q&A section towards the end. So if you have questions, feel free to throw them in the chat, and we will try to get to them at the end. We will also have a link if you are just interested in talking to someone from Goodera to ask 1,001 questions, because that's literally what I'm here for. But we'll keep going with today's webinar for everybody who's still here. So next is talking about executing a successful campaign and really what goes into it, because while there's a lot of planning, as I'm sure you know, and this doesn't just exist for a month of service, once you start getting involved, once the program actually starts, something is probably going to go wrong, right? A shipment doesn't arrive on time, there's some type of confusion, a Zoom link doesn't work, or it was supposed to be Teams, whatever it might be. So keeping all of those things in mind and making sure that you're as best prepared to execute during the day of or the month of is going to be important. So pre-event, some of the non-negotiable deliverables, making sure is that you have all of your volunteer activities finalized and confirmed. The NPO, so the nonprofit organizations have been coordinated, that they have been onboarded, they're aware of what's coming, what tangibles they're going to be receiving, and then empowering your ambassadors or your champions. It's important in the beginning because, coordination, what is something that's going to fit with this office? What do you like to do? What does your team like to do, etc. But then also you need a little bit of someone who's rallying for you, some type of a cheerleader, a hype man, whatever you want to refer to it as, but someone who's saying, hey, the event's on Tuesday. Are you going? Are you going? Can you bring your team? Let's make sure that we have people who actually turn out for these. So getting it, so not just that it's at a right time of day and something people like, but then also that last minute reminder to try to rally everybody towards it and help drive registration so that people are there during the event, making sure that you have an impactful experience. Some of the stuff that Dustin was talking about, sensitizing your volunteers, letting them know this is what you're going to be doing. This is the nonprofit. Here's the work that they do with the communities, beneficiaries that they work with. All of that information is going to be important. That we will be able to share in text form. We'll be able to share it live during the program. But as much as you can, talk to your employees about why this is something that's going to be happening, why they should be involved, and why they should actually care. Break the ice is also important during our actual events and during the entire month of service. You will have people from all walks. It's not the marketing meeting is meeting with just marketing employees. Maybe there's someone from sales, maybe there's someone from product. It's everybody from C-suite to entry-level employee. They all might be jumping into the exact same program. So breaking the breaking the ice, trying to break down a little bit of that existing power dynamic that obviously exists based on your title and experience within the organization, because you want people to feel comfortable together, to get to know each other in a, again, slightly different than normal work environment. And that helps you have a really smooth volunteer experience. It lets people come in with the right expectations about what their role is and what their outcomes they're looking for. So making sure that you're able to do that is going to be important. And that's all going to be able to happen when you have really good planning. Because if you've planned for it, you can focus on the positives during the event and during the execution. If your planning was missing some major steps, then you're going to spend that month of service doing a lot of running around and trying to make sure that everything last minute gets finalized and goes in the right direction. We also, I want to, ask Liz and Dustin if they have any other kind of stories or tidbits from when they were running events, things that you didn't predict and happened last minute, either, tales of caution or things that worked out really well for you. If either of you would like to jump in, this would be a great time.
Tim, you've said it a couple times, but it deserves to be repeated. Time is on your side. The more time you can give to plan, the better. Autodesk is a huge company, and so we rely heavily on our leadership to really champion these events and promote them. And even just our comms plan to involve them has to be like a month and a half before launch date. Like working with their comms teams, getting their buy-in, giving them time to align their messaging, and even figuring out where it's going to fit in all hands meetings before and newsletters going out. Really making sure that you have enough time on the front end. You definitely want to be chilling the week before your event launch and not running. So if it takes a little bit longer, you start earlier. We're already starting to plan for our next year one, and we're soft touching it. We're starting to get executive buy-in and looking at activities and stuff like that. So give yourself a lot of time, and then really rely on those champions, your ambassador networks, to help you do things and to be those cheerleaders, to be the voice of encouragement.
Excellent. Dustin, anything you'd like to add as well?
Yeah, just to reiterate the need to really have those strong relationships with multiple partners throughout your organization, especially the communications folks. Many different threads and avenues to communicate, really build those relationships with specific leaders in the organization. ELT members are always good to tap, but there's also some leaders that maybe have been there a long time, or you see maybe higher performing teams amongst them. You can tap them to encourage other divisions. We don't do friendly competition with giving, but we do have friendly competitions with volunteering. So that's something that can always get folks, more engaged and involved. And then for in-person events, build those relationships with the facilities folks, the security folks, those folks that actually make those things happen. They've been invaluable in that, making sure that the badges get updated, Wi-Fi acts, all those little things that you don't think of. The security and the facilities teams, deliveries, drop-offs. Does the place have a spot for a 18-wheeler, right? Is there a forklift? So those types of things when you're doing those in-person activities, couldn't recommend that enough. And, to tap on those champions, but like Liz said, a lot of them are already tapped out. And so instead of going to the well too many times, see if you can work with them on maybe recruiting some of their colleagues. So that way we can, disperse a lot of that extra responsibility that they're kind enough to put in.
And one last thing that I would also add to that, in complete agreement with both of you, is once you've done a week, month, single event of service, whatever it might be, it's the best time to start planning for your next one while it's still fresh in your mind. What happened, what went well, what didn't. Granted, you don't have to immediately start setting up dates for the next one, but make sure you've done, a post-operation report. What is it that you loved? What is it you didn't like? Keeping that in mind and fresh, right? Because otherwise you run the risk of waiting 6 months before you start planning it again. And then all of those things aren't fresh. You have to go back through email threads. The sooner you're planning it, the longer you're planning it, the better it's ultimately going to be.
Yeah, and to kind of build on that, I see like in the Q&A, there's quite a few questions about like how much these events have cost, how much like an event for 48 events and this many people cost. A lot of partnered events are priced per person, right? So like I have to make the business case, like for this X amount of dollars, this many employees can participate. For X amount of dollars, this amount. So after our recent GOMI, our Global Month of Impact, and we did our retrospective, it was the perfect time to remind our directs, like for this amount, we could do this amount of employees. So next year, you can kind of get early buy-in on like some budget in there of like, we could have done this many with X amount of budget more. So I think it's a really great chance to start creating like those steps and getting those early approvals or early like soft buy-in for what you want to do in the next year or next campaign. Yeah.
And what I've found is, as much as possible, if you can get 2024 done on the 2023 budget, right? If you can find a way to make sure that's secured, that's always very helpful. One thing we've had success with is with our nonprofit partners, we'll commit maybe end of 2023 to some events in person. If the event costs, $2,500, we'll offer a $7,500 grant. Hope to have 1 to 2 of those events. They get money and additional funding at the end, but we have those available, and so we'll start planning with them in coordination with the virtual events as well. So that's always helpful to make sure, because we don't know how the budgets are going to look next year.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you both for sharing. So moving to post event, and so sharing information with the parties that need to get that information. First, volunteer focused or employee focused. And let's be real, right? You didn't do this just to say that you had it done. You want to get your employees involved in it. Celebrate them. Appreciate what they've done. Talk about the programs that they went to. Post about it, right? Making sure that it's not just the internal company newsletter, but that you have people in leadership that are talking about members of their teams. Anyone who can talk about what it is that happened, why they're happy that it's happened, celebrating those individuals, giving them feedback, appreciating them. And then, if there's anyone that wasn't able to do it, we're not trying to necessarily name and shame, but encouraging them to take part in future programs. You want to make sure that only positive feelings are coming out of these events, and for everybody who is part of that. Then impact, there's 2 different ways that, at least within Goodera, we like to look at it. One, the numbers, right? Straight, how many volunteers were there? How many volunteer hours were there? What was the tangible item that was created? Or through this work, how many lives were impacted? That is important. That's going to go in your impact reports overall. That's part of the quantifying this to the C-suite, not just how many people were there, but what actually did we do while they were there. But on the same side, you want to tell a little bit of a story. It's not just an Excel that it gets forwarded over to people and then that's it. So taking photos throughout all of the events, every event, videos, people interacting, people having fun, and then using that to celebrate either the impact or to celebrate your employees. Those types of photos really go well both ways. But using that, showing that people are actually doing it. It's not something that is just being talked about in all hands meetings. It's actually something that people are getting up, getting out of their seat and taking part in these individual programs. And then really just, backing up everything that Liz just said, calculating the ROI, or, the return on the amount of volunteers that you're trying to actually get in. So your numbers, your volunteer satisfaction, did they love the events? Do they want to do it again? Did they love virtual and they don't want to do in person, or did they love in person? Or was there a mix of both? But getting that information so that you can immediately say, hey, we spent X amount on this program. Here are the results that we got. And here is where we anticipate we could have gone if we spent 10, 20, 30% more. Let's start planning a little bit of next year and seeing what we want to get there. So making sure that this communication comes out as soon as possible after the the grouping of events is over, but then also making sure that it's clear, directly to the point, and is something that is designed to be digested by the person that you're sending it out to. If it's something that's going to be a LinkedIn post, photos, quick impact. If it's something for C-suite, you might be talking a lot more about the investment and how much it costs per person, etc. But there's a bunch of different ways that you can make sure that you just don't end the event and then there's silence, but that you're able to celebrate people and talk about the impact for several weeks after the event has ended. And then this brings us close to the end of the presentation. So I know that we kind of discussed a little bit about it, but Liz or Dustin, do you have anything that you want to say for, as you wrapped up your events or your month of service? How did you kind of celebrate? How did you report that information back? Just what was some of your, closed loop communication that you're able to share with everyone?
Sure, I can go first. As you mentioned, the goal really is trying to quantify that impact, so that way we can share with both our employees that participated as well as our C-suite folks the ROI on that. That's difficult, to be honest. So we're working with some folks to try and really quantify those outcomes based on the nonprofits services. So that's in the works, but we do as much as possible quantify that. We also add all of the matching gifts. So we want to make sure that the employees know how much we contributed as a whole. When we do that, we try and highlight a specific nonprofit partner. Knowing that we have 6 key locations, our goal is to highlight a different nonprofit partner from all of those locations throughout the year, or all at once here if we engaged with them in the campaign. We also do individual volunteer spotlights. So folks that volunteered about maybe a cause outside of one of our partners, and then that's a good way to advertise your employee giving programs if you have rewards programs, etc. And then, working with Benevity and Goodera to really put together some nice presentations at the end that kind of demonstrate both, and then pulling in some of those other data that we have related to employee retention. We know that, the more engaged employees are, the more likely they are to stay with the organization. And then even trying to tie that into internal mobility. So we have our internal champions. There's some folks that have actually been promoted within the organization, obviously due to the wonderful work that they do. But I do feel that the additional responsibilities and increased awareness of their role was helpful in that, knowing that our management values that. So really tying all those together as you communicate that to the employees, I think can lead to more engagement. And, folks are going to engage in different avenues, and we want to meet them where they are. And then, as I saw someone asked about training the employee, everybody's going to be at a few different levels, but you can always work with other existing volunteer leads as long as they have the capacity to train them. Hopefully there's some templates or things you can use, and there's plenty of resources out there. I don't know if there will be a follow-up email, but I'd be happy to provide some resources to you all following the call if that's available.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're getting really we're focusing a lot more on like recognizing those impact champions. Like they're there, we love them, they do such great work, and we highlight them so much in like Slack, but we're recently doing we have like applause points. So when you interact with like somebody else on the company, they can give you applause points, and then those transfer into like cool gifts or like experiences. So part of that like wrapping up is really like making a really public acknowledgement of like great job to all of your helpers. And then yeah, the impact report that Goodera put together was really helpful. Because even though the employees want the story and we want the story is the best, the number of seeing like we built 500 solar lights, we built 700 of this, we removed 200 tons of carbon emission. The numbers really matter to everybody, and especially at Autodesk, where we're very focused on like how are we moving the needle on issues, and seeing impact or having numbers around impact is really important. Plus it just levels up to like all of our C staff, and that's really what they want to know. Yeah.
Excellent. All right, well, this brings us to our Q&A session. I'll just read out questions to everybody, and then we can take it. So the first one, there's two of them that I saw, which are both regarding budget in general. The short answer is that that question can be answered with a wide variety. It totally depends on how many employees, how many events you're trying to do. Are they virtual? If they're in person, do they require materials, etc. But spoiler, if you are interested, we will do a consultation call with you and let us know roughly what you want to do. And we will be able to give you a rough idea of what that budget is going to actually be or what that roughly costs. There is no fee for us to do that. So basically snapshot that QR code on the right, and you'll be able to talk to someone from Goodera, potentially even me, and we'll be able to hear what it is that you're looking to do and try to create an individual plan for you. So I will say that we have answered both of these. One that I saw that I think is great for you, Liz, is from Vishesh, is basically, thank you for sharing. How did you activate your champions in the run up to the month of service? Any thoughts or tips on how to best engage or align them to drive the maximum participation?
Yeah, so probably about a quarter before the month of, we had meetings. We always do an EMEA friendly meeting and then an APAC friendly meeting with our impact champions. And that was to sort of like bring the idea to them, which was we're partnering with Goodera. We have a selection of activities that we'd like you to choose from for your in-person activity. And then it had follow-ups, right? Like, so we're going to send out a survey to see what activity you want to do. We're going to send out, including in that is how many employees do you think will be coming into the office? Many of you are probably struggling a little bit with like how employees disperse and land in like a new remote world. So even if we have 200 employees in a certain office, only 20% of them come in. So even a smaller amount might come in on a day for volunteering. So we want to make sure that we're really like figuring out what is the best day for people to come in. If they have like a free lunch, the office says like a free meal or something that day, that's the best day to have people come in. So usually using your impact champions to figure out all of that information was key. And they loved being involved in the early planning. Part of having such a big company is that sometimes these global campaigns can feel really US centric and really transactional, where you're like, it comes from the US. It doesn't have a lot of equity in what is meaningful in different cultures, something that we're working on. But also it's like, here's what we're doing. Please go tell your employees. It feels very transactional. So by involving your impact champions much earlier in the process to help you develop your comms plan, help develop your promotional space, even asking for volunteers to help with like content creation or partnering, like getting in touch with like local organizations and I don't know, building your content. If you have like a cool video to build, there's a lot of skilled people in your skilled resources in your employees that they want to use their skills a little differently than their job usually has. So being able to like connect with people in that way was really key to our success.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah.
I've got another question I think that I'm going to bounce to you, Dustin, which is Joe has asked, any suggestions on how to train an enthusiastic volunteer into a champion that can lead an event? It's one thing to be an individual who's eager to give back. It's another to run a giving back event with all the logistics and make sure that the event is positive for all volunteers and the charity. So any suggestions on how to take someone who's animated and turn them into a champion?
Yeah, I think if you have an existing sort of champion network and council, it's always good to see if there's an opportunity for one of them to mentor. I'm always open and have discussions with anybody that's interested. There are some programs that we were able to utilize. Realized Worth was very helpful in helping provide templates and resources. Our goal, as Liz mentioned, is really not to be transactional, and it's difficult at times when you're putting these large events together. So really making sure that our employees that are leading are able to make those less transactional, more transformative. One of the things that we focus on is the debrief to ensure that folks are really able to digest. So have that introduction, being able to debrief at the end, sharing things of being maybe difference between feeling uncomfortable and, in danger. So there's lots of different perceptions and things that come from folks that are maybe new in the space. But we love to meet those folks wherever they are. So I think making sure there's a good fit, having things housed internally. So we have a Teams channel where we have a lot of our trainings and documents. There's videos that we provide. I don't know what ones I'd be able to actually share from, following this call, but I could definitely provide some of those resources, Melissa, at least consolidated form. But I'd recommend Realized Worth to see what they have available as well.
Excellent, thank you. I will jump in and answer one now before I throw another one back to the two of you. So one from Mallory is basically, do you allow projects outside of the Goodera project for options? We typically try to have some organized by our social impact team and also empower and incentivize our employees to self-organize events on their own. Wouldn't want to lose that empowerment side. Absolutely. So there's two ways that I can answer this for Goodera. One, we onboard and vet new nonprofits all of the time. If your local team, let's say your team in Chicago has a local nonprofit that's near and dear to them, Goodera is not in the business of coming and saying you can't work with anybody else, you only have to go through us. On the positive side, we would love to be introduced to that nonprofit. We would be able to design out programs that would serve them, their communities, their beneficiaries, so that not only can you volunteer for them through Goodera, but also once they're working within the Goodera's network, other organizations in the same area can also be taking on projects and give back to them. On the other side, if they would for some reason not prefer working with Goodera, or they're just someone that you're working with, there is a level of local impact and connection that you never want to just kind of ride over. If you have a team that is found a very local nonprofit and it's incredibly important to them, continue to work with that. We want to help you enhance and reinforce everything that you're doing. If you've already got something, keep it. We'll help you build out everything else that you're still lacking on around it to make sure that your overall program is as powerful as possible. So the short answer is work with whoever your people and your employees are passionate about working with. We can have it so that they're going through our system, but regardless of that works out or not, continue to do that and we'll help you with all of the other steps that are going to go towards a much larger program. And the next question from Monica Jackson is, and I think this is great for both of you if you have any insight, but what role can leadership play in setting an example and encouraging participation in a month of service?
The biggest role. A really, really big role. Leadership buy-in and endorsement is huge in getting employees to sign up. They really feel like when their leadership participates, it's important to the company and not something the company is asking them to do.
Absolutely. Dustin?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, definitely very valuable once those folks reach out. And I think being intentional with who and how, we want to make sure, it's encouraging and not in any way like it's just getting folks energized for it. But to make sure that you can have multiple leaders at different levels be able to communicate that. So often the ELT may write something, but that doesn't mean that I, as an agent, feel like my supervisor is promoting it. So knowing that their supervisor is then re-forwarding that email, reminding them, hey, we encourage you to do this. It's okay to take this time off. We've set aside time for you. Really also adds to that.
Excellent. And it looks like we are about 1 minute past the hour. So just to kind of quickly wrap up, if anyone is interested in learning about more month of service, or an opportunity for the upcoming season of giving, or just looking for a consultation, take a photo of these QR codes here, and we will have someone reach out to you. We will also be sending out follow-up communication with a recording of this for everybody that was here and that also just had signed up, even if you weren't able to attend. And so we'll make sure that Liz, Dustin, and myself are able to compile any of our notes or any other hints and ideas and put that into that same information, so that if you missed something or if there was a little bit more information that you were looking for, then you would be able to get that. And so with that, hold on, let me make sure it's actually perfect. I want to thank everybody who took the time on this Thursday afternoon to hear a little bit more about a month of service, to listen to me talk about Goodera, but also I really want to thank Dustin and Liz for taking the time to talk about the programs that they've gone through, for trusting Goodera, for the services that we've been able to provide thus far, and for just being here and for the great conversation for the past hour. So thank you everybody for joining, and thank you Liz and Dustin as well.
And I got one more thing
Thank you,
to add.
Tim.
Oh,
Tim,
go for it.
sorry,
We got it.
I saw one question in there related to ERGs and champions initiatives. We're looking to see what possibilities there are for additional funding, and just paying folks that are doing the work essentially for free. And often they are the folks leading a lot of the equity and justice work. So the more we can all get on board as practitioners in leading that, I think we can work together to help make that more common amongst all of our programs.
Excellent. Well, I can't think of a better way to sign off than talking about ERGs as the unsung heroes of most organizations. Again, thank you everybody for being here. Thank you, Liz and Dustin, and I'll see everybody whenever I see you.
Bye. Thank you, Tim.
Thanks,
Take care,
everyone.
everybody.
Bye. Thank you.